When I was 25 and a half, I started a podcast. The goal? To review some of the newest and the latest movies, along with some other stuff. With the help of my guests, I was able to do this, but there were dark forces tampering with my podcast, and with me. They called it an improvised podcast for some reason. I eventually found help in the form of myself. Yes, the me from a universe where the movies I reviewed got delayed. Apparently, my podcast made it to his universe. I know now that it is my duty, for the good of that universe, nay, the multiverse, to keep recapping and reviewing these movies, to hold listeners over until they could eventually see the movies as they were made in their world. For some reason, they come out differently in my world, but it's kind of entertaining that way. My name is Steven Shinder, and this is Delayed Replay. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, as always, Steven Shinder, and for this episode, we're talking about The Tomorrow War, which for us came out December 25th, 2020, but in that other universe actually comes out like this Friday on Amazon Prime, but we're recording before it comes out theirs, but when you guys listen to it, it'll be like the day after, it'll be tomorrow, but I'm sure it'll be pretty different, as has been the track record for like all these recaps of these different movies. Like they come out somehow different, but some similarities, and that's just how these universes work. And joining me for the first time on this podcast, he's very skilled at improv. He's another person who's been in Improv Revolution in the past. Recently talked with him at the 10-year reunion of that. It is Austin Bennett. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing well, Stephen. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to have an opportunity to talk about this movie that I loved, honestly, and then evidently get to tear it apart before it is also re-released. So I get to enjoy it twice. So what's happening here?
Yeah, we like keep in touch with the other versions of ourselves, and so we like to like compare notes, and also are able to like watch with each other. Like sometimes like it takes a lot of science and whatnot, but we manage to make it work.
Exactly. And the only thing better than hanging out with myself is hanging out with two of myself.
Yeah, like it doesn't sound as sad as it used to, with these two universes that are like now in touch with each other.
Which, I mean, actually I feel like this week's movie is a great example for that.
The Tomorrow War has like this time travel concept, and so you have, like, for example, you have like this future and past version of Chris Pratt's daughter. I always think of him as Chris Pratt because that's just who he is, but his character's name is Dan Forrester, and his daughter's name is Murray. You see like two versions of her, but yeah, what are your thoughts on like time travel movies in general? Like, it's kind of a genre unto itself, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's this whole subset of sci-fi that people have been fascinated with, forever and ever. I'm pretty sure there's some Greek myths on that. I love time travel movies. I actually have been working on one with a buddy for a couple of years now. The plan is once we finish our time travel movie, we're going to go back to the beginning and deliver it to ourselves so that we don't have to spend years writing it. But this may surprise you, but it turns out they're wildly complicated. So we've been kind of chewing on that for a couple of years now. But yeah, I love time travel movies. I try to make a point of seeing them. There's a few of the classics that I still have not seen, like Bill and Ted's. But I'm a big fan.
Oh yeah,
part of why I love the movie so much.
Yeah, the Bill and Ted movies are mostly good. Like, I think the second one falls short a bit, but it still has its moments. And the third one is my favorite of the trilogy. It's surprisingly.
Now that just came out pretty recently, didn't it?
Yeah, it came out last year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that one is definitely next on my list. I also like I like to get really deep into the nerd stuff of like how the machine works and why, and whether that just gets hand waved as we have a time machine, cool, let's go, or whether there's something a little different to it. Sometimes it's magic, sometimes it's just a mental thing. I like how much variation there is in the genre overall.
Yeah, I think the first time travel thing I ever watched was the Dexter's Laboratory TV movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was originally the series finale before they brought it back a year or a couple years later or something.
Before they had the actor swap for the voice of Dexter.
Right, they changed the animation style and everything when they brought it back. But yeah, it intrigued me because you got to see these different versions of the character at different stages of his life.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that also makes me think of the Kim Possible time travel movie where she goes to the universe where she had not where she was defeated. They skip to the future. That's it. The one where they skip to the future, and so Rufus is in a big old suit and
Shigo has taken over.
Yeah. I love seeing that.
Great.
I feel like I do need to go back and rewatch Dexter's Laboratory Ego Trip. I feel like that would be pretty great.
Yeah, it's one of those things I haven't watched since I was a really little kid. So I'm really wondering how it'll play as an adult, whether I'll catch some things that I missed that went over my head. Yeah, I gotta check that out at some point. Yeah, and funny enough, Genndy Tartakovsky played with time travel again with Samurai Jack, which I'm still making my way through all these years later.
Yes, I'm actually doing the same.
Oh, nice.
His stuff is remarkable. It's so challenging. It's something I can't background. I like to do a lot of background watching of things. You can throw on Friends or throw on Parks and Rec or something. But Tartakovsky's stuff, because it's so cinematic that you have to sit down and watch it.
Yeah, Clone Wars 2D, that. I just can't be doing anything else while I watch that. So I totally get what you mean. And yeah, it wasn't until 2004 that I started really thinking about these different rules of time travel that people have. You had Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, where it seems like the things that happened were supposed to happen, but I also around that same time watched Back to the Future for the first time, and it was he goes back in time and changes some things, and that creates a new timeline. So there are lots of different things that can be done, different rules that they can abide by.
Yeah, like a hard travel versus a soft travel.
Yeah, and then you get Avengers Endgame, which was different from either of those, where they go back in time and that creates a branching reality, but they're able to go back to their original reality, which was something to get used to.
Which, if you then continue with Loki, so for those who want, it's a mild spoiler, but I figure it's part of the first episode, so people can probably deal. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so the story in Loki continues with that idea of time travel in the Marvel universe, where there are actually beings, and there's this whole organization called the Time Variance Authority that is in charge of making sure that the timeline remains intact. So there can be things that split off, but then they'll come in and they'll trim off the splits. So that'll be really interesting to see how that changes the Marvel universe going forward, whether that continues or if that breaks up or what's going on with that. You can also look at, like you were saying, with things that split off. You've got things where you don't know that things are necessarily going to come back around, like 12 Monkeys.
I think the movie and the show have opposite rules, if I remember correctly, which is...
I haven't seen the show yet.
I think I've seen only the first season, and then I fell behind, and it's been forever. But maybe I'll try the show again at some point. I don't know.
And the other one that comes to mind is Donnie Darko, where where there is a deviance from the thing, and that kind of causes the whole problem. And so at the end of the movie, we go back and, spoiler alert, the time problem gets solved.
Yeah. And of course, you have all these Terminator movies, which do a lot of different things. That's a whole thesis or essay or whatever. But
it's like that old adage, if at first, just don't succeed time again.
Yeah, but it just occurred to me, Chris Pratt, his character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he didn't get to take part in the time heist because he got turned to dust. But here, he plays a character who gets to take part in the time travel. And so
finally gets his heisting
yeah.
in.
Yeah, so the premise of the Tomorrow War is basically like in 2051, you have this war between humans and aliens. And so they go back in time 30 years and they're like, hey, we need more people in this war in the future, which is kind of the opposite of what I'm used to for this type of like military time travel thing. Like I'm so used to like the future soldiers coming back to the past to try to change things, but this kind of flipped it on its head a little bit, didn't it?
It did, absolutely. And I could see where that would where that already causes problems, because now you're not just harvesting your own generations, you are now harvesting earlier generations, which we see with Dan's relationship with his daughter and the ongoing issues with that.
Yeah, like it's really like kind of jarring seeing like his daughter when she's a kid, like she hasn't experienced like any of this war or whatever yet, but when he gets to the future, it's like, yeah, she's like rough and tough, she's seen some stuff. I didn't intend for that to rhyme, but it happened. And, and it's like, wow, it's a lot happened to her, and it's like almost to the point where like he doesn't recognize her at first, but of course like we already knew because like the trailers like kind of spoiled it, I guess.
Yeah, she's played by the always delightful Yvonne Strahovski. And honestly, if there's any future in which I grow up to look like Yvonne Strahovski, I'm okay with that future.
Yeah, I'm familiar with her from a character she played on some episodes of Dexter, like in the later seasons. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm aware of Chuck, but I never like got around to watching it.
I recommend it's good. It's very funny, very actiony. It's good. She plays a super spy, so it role was very similar.
Okay, yeah. Maybe someday I'll add it to my watch
Ever-growing list.
Yeah, I'm like I listed out the show. Like today I wrote out on my notes app like all the different shows that I'm watching and rewatching, like including stuff that's been out for a while and stuff that's currently ongoing. And I'm like watching 30 different shows right now. It's insane. It's like, wow, I hate this kind of.
Hey, we're living in a golden age of television right now. So not only do you have to keep up with going on right now, you also have to catch up with the stuff that's just finished or finished before that.
Yeah, this is why humanity is trying to like prolong our lifespan so that we can just be able to watch everything, you know?
Exactly. That's why we need these extra 30 years between now and the end of the Tomorrow War.
Yeah, like they mention it in the movie. There, or like one of them kind of says it as a joke, but they're kind of like, oh, we need to make sure that human race survives so that we can watch everything. And it's like,
yeah, so we can get to the end of Cheers and find out what happens to Sam and Diane. Which I did love as that point when we see that in the movie when Chris Pratt tells us that they don't have jokes in the future. That's how bad this war has been.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm so used to Chris Pratt playing characters who joke around, and so him going to a future where there are no jokes, it's like it's kind of depressing actually.
But it's great to see the director Chris McKay stepping out of his real wheelhouse, because we know that he came from doing a lot of comedy stuff. I mean, he's done other smaller stuff previously, but the biggest things he's done recently, he did the Lego movie, he did Lego Batman. He also worked a lot on Robot Chicken, and
nice. So he knows how to play with toys, basically.
He knows how to play with toys and make stop motion jokes. And so him getting into something where he's not allowed to tell jokes and has to talk about the future, you know what? Good on you, Chris McKay.
Yeah. Like we do get jokes here and there. Like we get Sam Richardson's character Charlie. He has like some lines that are meant to be funny, and sometimes they are, but other times they're kind of cringe-worthy. Like the screenwriters or screenwriter, I should say, didn't know what better line to put there. But I do really like when he's able to get serious. Like Charlie like gets to lead the charge at some point in the movie, and it's like really inspiring.
Yeah, the music at that point was really fantastic. Seeing him tackle the alien Bulbasaurs, that was my vibe of these alien Bulbasaurs.
Yeah, like they're like, okay, so we should go into like what the aliens look like. So they're grayish, but they have arms and legs, but they also have like these tendril things, which are like vines, which is like, yeah, they have like this Bulbasaur vibe to them.
For all of our listeners, if you've ever seen Vine Whip, that's the aliens. That's what's going on right there. They can run, they can climb, they can fly.
Yeah, imagine if this was like the result of just the Pokemon Go app gone wrong. Like
all of them smashed together.
Yeah. Like I also found it like really surprising that even in the future of 2051, you still have people with cell phones taking pictures of everything. Like even when they're being attacked by aliens, they feel the need to like take pics, like despite the danger. And I found that kind of annoying, to be honest.
Really? No, see, I loved it. I feel like that's such a human thing. It's a real connection. You know, I feel like humans at every point in our own timeline, we're going to stop and take pictures of things. I mean, look at the cave paintings. You know, you see your buddy get mauled by a mammoth, and guys like, well, that was cool. I'm gonna go put that on the side of a rock. So we're gonna do that. You know, you see a train crash, somebody's gonna video it. Well, the Earth is being taken over by aliens. This is going on my TikTok.
I did think it was rather ironic that the aliens were attacking because of the whole technology thing. Like they basically took a look at humanity on the internet and saw the worst of humanity and were like, you know what, we need to exterminate these pieces of crap. And it's like, well, that was quite the revelation of why they're attacking.
And it's so direct too. But I appreciate that you know, with time travel movies, they can get really complicated. But just having a nice direct, we're the bad guys, we're gonna come squash all the humans. That great. I don't really need more than that. I just, you know, want the aliens to show up, they kill me, they steal my Wrangler jeans, they walk off.
Yeah, they really tried to make it a bit more straightforward than other time travel movies and really bring in like the reminders of what humanity is. Like we have that campfire scene where Chris Pratt is like telling stories of the past. He talks about advice from his father, who's played by J.K. Simmons.
Always a treasure.
Yeah, I love J.K. Simmons. He's the best J. Jonah Jameson.
He's the best everything. I don't care what you have. He's
Whiplash. He also does great voiceover work. Like J.K. Simmons is incredible. We can't say enough great things about him.
But you're right. Yeah, that campfire scene was really great because it brings us to that moment of poignancy of bringing it back to here's who we are, here's why we're here. We're gonna go out, we're gonna kick some alien butt, and then I'm gonna go home with my wife. For a future that doesn't have jokes, they sure do have pathos.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like, especially in our era, jokes are part of what make humanity. Like, it shows us who we are and it helps us bond with each other. But even without that element in this future, they were still able to show that people can bond over storytelling. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I just love that. And but of course, there are also humans who bond over sports events like wrestling matches, which I guess is why they threw in that like wrestling match where like they're fighting the aliens in the ring, and it's like this
big final scene there when they have it's Chris Pratt versus the big alien. Let's settle this once and for all.
Yeah, and like the alien has like the upper hand on him, obviously, because it has like more to use, like
upper hand, upper tentacle, upper everything. He's just gonna bring it. But you know what Chris Pratt has? Humanity and jokes that he's bringing into the future.
Yeah, like it did kind of feel like a redo of Guardians of the Galaxy where he like tells a joke to distract the alien and then the alien laughs, but it works, I guess. It's like,
yeah, it was so great. And I don't want to spoil it for our listeners, but let me tell you, worth listening to. It was an excellent joke.
Yeah, like it was like, oh, how did the joke go? It was like he was like 3 aliens walk into a bar.
3 aliens walk into an alien bar, and bartender says, "What do you want?"
The alien says, "I want a glass of moon milk."
And bartender says, moon milk, we're all out of moon milk.
And then the alien says, "How dare you?"
Kills, and it slays. Everybody in the theater laughed. Yeah. I laughed. You laughed.
Yeah, it was like one of those jokes where it's like that's kind of dumb, but also like who else would have like thought of that? It's like so unique, and like the whole theater
Chris
erupted.
Pratt, right there, boom. Thank you for saving Earth, Dan Forrester. Thank you for saving Earth with your dad jokes.
Yeah, dad jokes saving the earth. Like that's the future I want to live in.
Exactly. Exactly. That was perfect.
But what'd you think of like the CGI for these aliens overall?
I was actually pretty impressed. I mean, obviously CGI has gotten a lot better, and I think that sometimes with this kind of stuff, less is more. But with this, we get a lot of aliens out there in broad daylight, and it's definitely more Star Wars than it is reindeer reindeer horn tied on top of a dog's head, like we see in The Grinch. You know?
Yeah, like the Jim Carrey one.
Yeah, yeah. Because he's got to have his reindeer. So Chris Pratt needs his aliens, but we got some good aliens. It honestly reminded me of. Did you ever see Cowboys versus Aliens?
Oh yeah, I've seen Cowboys and Aliens. Like that was a long time ago.
Yeah, that one I think was probably the world's greatest idea ever. That just didn't quite stick the landing, but had so much interesting potential.
Yeah, I think it's based on a comic book, and it does sound like a very comic book idea, but a fun one. Like Cowboys and Aliens, like it's basically like what Toy Story did, like mixing the cowboy and spaceman element, but like it
That
just
actually is an excellent point.
yeah. But the movie was just like middle of the road at best. Like I've only seen it once. Like I rented it sometime after it came out. Back when you could get Netflix DVDs in the mail, or maybe you can still do that. I don't know.
Which evidently you still can do. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I guess their DVD selection is a little broader. But I figured, that takes time and effort. And, it's the 21st century, and pretty soon it'll be 2051. We don't have time to wait for people to mail us DVDs.
Yeah, I do think that movie really needed improvement. It was kind of cool seeing Harrison Ford do his thing, but because, it's Harrison Ford, but.
Let's say you're going to bring Harrison Ford and you're going to recast any character from Tomorrow War with Harrison Ford. Who are you putting him in?
Oh, man, that's a great question. Like, I'm sure some people would say, like, have him play J.K. Simmons' character because of, like, the age thing and, like, the type. But I think I honestly would have cast Harrison Ford into the, like, Keith Powers plays Major Greenwood, and, like, Keith Powers is, like, young. He's, like, late 20s, but I honestly think it would have fared better if Harrison Ford was in that role. Like, I think he would have, like, really delivered and would have elevated this movie a bit more. Like, no disrespect to Keith Powers, but, like, I could just imagine Harrison Ford saying the lines that he says,
Oh, yeah. Just bringing in that Jack Ryan energy that, I am the president of the United States. Today is Independence Day. That kind of vibe. I dig it. I would have liked to see him as the grown-up Muri. Instead of Yvonne Strahovski, we get that Dan Forrester's daughter grows up to be grizzled Han Solo. I think that just would have been that would have been a twist.
Right. Like you could have like set the future like way further down the line, like not 2051, but maybe like I don't know, 2081, 91 or something. You could have had like the old like Sarah Connor thing and like Terminator Dark Fate, even though that movie I thought wasn't that great, but like the older like version of that character is what I'm saying.
I was thinking you leave it with the 30 years, but it's a sign of this is how rough these 30 years have been.
Oh, I see. So kind of like Ben Kenobi in the desert.
Yeah, because he's been out, been going from Ewan McGregor to Alec Guinness, pardon me, Sir Alec Guinness. That's a heck of a jump there, living out in Tatooine, not easy.
Yeah, you got like the two sons, and like people are really terrible on that planet. It's rough.
That I think is probably the most impressive part of Star Wars is how pale Alec Guinness managed to be after living on a planet with two sons. Man still could not get a tan to save his life.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he probably wore like the hood most of the time to like be low key. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series whenever that comes out. Like, I'm sure that'll be like a fun way to like bridge the gap.
That'll be interesting. I do like seeing more as they're bringing in smaller directors. We are seeing this with Mandalorian, and we're seeing this with Clone Wars. Or sorry, not Clone Wars, with Bad Batch. Just bringing in like fresh stories, because you've got this whole entire universe, and I'm sure some other Star Wars fans out there have probably said the same thing. But then we've got this whole entire universe of stories to tell. We don't have to focus them all around one family plus their friends. Like, we could have stories from anywhere that don't involve the Jedi and the Sith. You know, tell me more about these space truckers who follow the Kessel Run. You know, but they're just doing their thing. I want to know more about that.
Yeah, for a while I've thought that a no-brainer for a Star Wars movie would be like basically Pirates of the Caribbean, but in space. Like Treasure Planet, but live action.
How rad would that be?
With Hondo and like Maz Kanata and the Crimson Corsair, like all those pirate characters, like that would be a fun movie.
That would be so cool. I'm 110% I would pay money to see that. I guess you're supposed to pay money to see most things. I would pay more money to see that.
Yeah, you could call it like Pirates of the Galaxy's Edge, and yeah, Lucasfilm, call me.
Yeah, we're gonna copy that right now.
Yeah, C in circle, TM, R in circle.
There you go. Yeah, copyright, trademark, owned and operated by Steven Shinder.
Yeah, you could copyright fan fiction, right? I don't know.
Can you actually?
I mean, I don't think you can, but like, yeah.
Are you a fan fiction guy? Do you read a lot of fan fiction?
I used to write fan fiction when I was in high school.
Really? Okay, who for? Or I guess what property for?
Lots of different stuff, like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon stuff, and lots of different sci-fi movies. I'm sure Star Wars was in there somewhere, and some horror movies, like with different slasher movies. But the problem was that, and also Disney stuff, but the problem was that I would more often than not start writing a story and then never finish it, because I would want to start another story and just like, I just never finished the majority.
The curse of the eternal writer.
Yeah, well, I abandoned that fan fiction account basically because, like, you know, as an adult, like, I decided like I'd much rather focus on my own original content, like, you know, my own novels. Like, for example, I mean, this is basically a plug, like earlier in the episode than anticipated, but my fantasy horror comedy novel Lemons Will Make Rain that got finished a couple years ago, and I'm trying to finish the follow-up Trespassing Through the Visages. And yeah, it's just been more fulfilling for me, like, finishing original content.
I gotta say, I love your titles. Your titles are fantastic. Those just they. If I saw that under that, I want to know more about that book. And I think, and that's so hard, is finding a good title.
Yeah, the title can be sometimes like the tricky part, but once you like find the right one, it's like, yes, this is it. Boom. It's
got that vibe. It just grips you by the soul. I read a response by Neil Gaiman, who was talking about writing, and somebody asked him, I think it's in his masterclass, but he's talking about when he first started writing, he would start writing things and not finish them, and start them and not finish them. And then it was through that practice that he eventually got to the point that he could finish something and it was terrible. And so he had to write more. So he wrote more and he finished it and it was slightly less terrible. And so he wrote more and more, and just this ongoing process of, the fact that you have finished one book all by yourself and now you're working on your second, that's all the power to you, man.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it helps to write out of order, like for me, like writing the scenes that I know so vividly and basically just filling in the gaps. Like, you don't have to start, like, the beginning is often the hardest part to write, so I just like skip around. If I know the ending, I'll write the ending, and as I add more things, I make sure like everything gets revised so that it stays consistent with each other. So yeah, well, writing tip for listeners if you want to write anything.
And that's a great connection because you said that this is sci-fi horror, and that fits so well with the Tomorrow War because it's not just all of these one-sided jokes and people not laughing at the jokes that Chris Pratt is making, is that we've also got the horror survival element there.
I really like the title as well, but what did you think of the title, The Tomorrow War? Like, was there anything else they could have thought of, or was this like the title they had to go with?
Yes, I don't know if you've seen this yet, but they've already announced that they're going to be releasing the sequel that is called The Yesterday War, in which people from the past go to the future to get their tomorrow selves to come back to today and fight for yesterday. So I'm very excited for that, and I think that title just works out perfectly with this whole thing. You know, Back to the Future 1 is followed by 2. Well, Tomorrow War is followed by Yesterday War.
Yeah, there are like so many movies going on that I'm not always on the pulse of like everything that's been announced. So yeah, like just the fact that the Yesterday War is happening like that could be really intriguing. It could be like part sequel, part prequel, and like I mean, it could be potentially confusing for some people, but I'm really curious to see where they take that.
Hey, look, if it's not at least a little bit confusing, it's not a time travel movie.
Yeah, now I'm trying to think of whether there's ever been a time travel movie that didn't have anything confusing in it at all. But
well, I wrote a short list here, so let's think.
Okay.
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh yeah, that was straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, aside from how a can of Red Bull makes a hot tub turn into a time machine.
I mean, Red Bull gives you wings, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gives you wings. Chevy Chase shows up. Cool. There's nothing complicated there. We already mentioned the Terminator. How do they do it? Science.
All the Terminator movies are complicated. I'm able to follow, but they're still complicated.
Yeah. I mean, you could even go OG with the time machine. How's it work? Science. Thank you, H.G. Wells.
Yeah, like I remember in the book, I don't think he even like describes what the time machine looks like specifically. It's just left to the imagination.
Yeah, it is a contraption.
Okay. Yeah, but that was a fun read.
Yeah, if you want to go with we've got the more romantic side. If you want to go with the time traveler's wife, in which they don't know what it is. It's some kind of a genetic condition, but it's similar to epilepsy, in which this guy just kind of snaps around at different times.
Oh, is that what happens?
Yeah, it's mostly during his own life, so he'll jump back and forth to during his own lifetime.
Oh, so it's like Quantum Leap in that sense.
Kind of Quantum Leap, but they specifically address that big emotional moments. So there's like a big traumatic car crash when he was a child, and he's there like 15 or 20 times over just as himself at various points in life. Or he'll jump around. But the whole point, or the plot, pardon me, of Time Traveler's Wife is that he keeps time traveling back, and he visits his wife as she is growing up. So she first meets him when she is 6 years old, but he doesn't meet her until he is 20 something. As crazy as that sounds. So if you read the book or watch the movie, it switches off with who's narrating at the time, whether she is narrating her life or whether he's narrating his life.
Okay, yeah, I've only seen the trailer for the movie whenever it came out, and for some reason, I thought that the premise was that they have a time traveling mailbox.
That's the Lake House. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock.
Oh, they're the stars of the movie? Oh, this must have been before I knew who they were.
Yeah, no, so separate movies. So you've got the Lake House, which is the one with the mailbox.
Oh, I see.
Just the time travel. None of the rest of it is time travel, just the mailbox. I mean, maybe it's the house. Maybe it is the Lake House. I don't know. Yeah, so the Lake House is about the time traveling mailbox. Time Traveler's Wife is about this guy who keeps snapping around in time as like epileptic fits. It's about him and his relationship with his wife. I recommend. Yeah, Lake House, also a good romantic one. You've also got About Time, which is a garbage, terrible time travel movie. I don't ever watch it. Made me so angry, very upset.
Maybe Lake House is a Bill and Ted movie, and we just don't know it.
Yeah, it's set in the same universe. Yeah, it's after Bill grows up, and unfortunately the Wild Stallions break up, and he straightens up, gets clean cut, and then finds this really nice lake house. And oh, what do you know?
Yeah.
It turns out Sandra Bullock lives there just later.
Yeah.
That I would watch. Bill and Ted and
or-
Sandra's
yeah.
Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, I sometimes forget which one he plays. I think it's Ted, but yeah.
I actually have not
whatever.
seen that yet, but it is on my list. But I do know that in all of these stories, time travel often causes a lot of problems, and that's part of why I guess J.K. Rowling explicitly pulled the time travel devices out of the book in book 5.
Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, Harry and the Scoobies go to the Ministry of Magic, and they explicitly break all of the time travel devices so that Rowling, who wrote in time travel with weak rules, didn't have to putz around with it anymore.
Yeah, but then Rowling played around with it in Cursed Child, and the rules were like the opposite of what you'd expect, and just
and made a weird, complicated time travel alt future butterfly effect movie, not movie, play.
I was not a fan of that.
Yeah, I heard that it was not optimal. My understanding is that she didn't write it. She just had like creative yay or nay, but that she wasn't the capital W writer.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard different things, but like ultimately it's like, I don't know, it's been like, I don't really care anymore, really, but yeah. Yeah, like there's a lot you can do with time travel stuff. But getting back to the Tomorrow War, like what were like your favorite action moments in the movie?
There was the scene when they're having when they're at the concert, right? Everybody's hanging out and they're playing their music, and then the aliens show up. This was that big, during that that exposition of like, hey, some aliens showed up, and we get that aliens showed up, and it is during the final Rolling Stones concert. Which is by itself a big deal. But so we get this really great cinematic scene of aliens come down and, with classic Stones music going on in the background. And it's like, oh, hey, are we going to make first contact? Nope, y'all going to die. I thought that was a really big impressive. It wasn't a lot much for the story. It was just very exposition, but enjoyed that scene. That was really great. And then that scene when they're going up through the hotel, we get little bits of that from the trailer. Did you ever see The Raid?
No, my brother and his friends have seen it and they really love it, apparently.
Strongly recommend, if you like action movies, go see The Raid. If you want to watch a knockoff that's the exact same plot, I don't know if it's a knockoff, but it actually does coincidentally have the same plot, was the 2012 Judge Dredd movie.
I love Dredd. It's such a great movie.
There we go. That movie, exact same plot as The Raid, except that The Raid is like 50 times more violent.
And that's saying something, because Dredd is already violent.
Yeah, and then we see that same thing in Tomorrow War, where they've got to make their way up the tower to get to the top, to get to the secret lair of the aliens. Which, if we're being honest, I feel like if you're going to put your secret lair anywhere on top of a building brightly lit up, it's probably not optimal.
The secret alien lair, like the design of it I felt it was kind of generic, but they tried to make it like somewhat different by having like pink screens here and there, I guess.
But I liked that. It was very bathhouse.
Yeah. I think my favorite action scene, this is kind of a dumb one, but when the aliens went to like the mall and they used their devices to make these Wrangler jeans come to life, like they could control them remotely, and it basically felt like that old Jimmy Neutron episode, like when pants attack.
Yes, perfect connection. Because that's exactly the image that I was looking for and had not landed on. Yes, Attack of the Killer Jeans, which you got to think about. Like, honestly, if your pants woke up, that would be terrifying.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my friend Greg, like he and I watched this movie called Slacks, which came out within the last year, and it takes place in a like clothing store, and like these slacks come to life because they're like cursed or something. Like there's a flashback that kind of explains it, but it was like so, like some parts of it were kind of funny, I guess, but it was really cringe worthy in places. Like I don't rate it highly, but Yeah, I just remembered that movie exists.
If you want to see a good one, I recommend there's a Wallace and Gromit episode where he creates these electronic pants, and the pants actually is not so much the pants themselves that they're not possessed or anything, but an evil penguin takes control of the pants and is thus controlling Wallace. Recommend. I don't know whether or not it's better than Slacks. We'll have to trade off on that. You watch Wallace and Gromit, and I'll watch Slacks.
I mean, if it's Wallace and Gromit, it's probably better than Slacks.
You got to love those C-list horror movies, and because at some point they're thinking, what should we do? Should we do a man with a knife? No. Man with a gun? No. Man with an axe? No. What hasn't been done? Man with pants.
There's this video called Live Action Wallace and Gromit, and it looks very creepy.
I imagine that would.
Yeah, highly recommend.
Live action Wallace and Gromit. I will go find that.
Yeah, it's scarier than Curse of the Were-Rabbit or whatever it was called. But yeah, so what'd you think of like the way that the Tomorrow War ended? Like, did the finale like live up to like what was built up throughout the movie, or like what was your take on it?
I think it had so many great philosophical questions throughout the movie. These ideas of causality and are we creating our own problems? Because if we go back, you could relate it to current energy issues, as we saw. If we use up all of the world's resources, what do you have? Well, I can't go to yesterday and buy yesterday's gas. The same way, if there's aliens and they're killing off all the humans, cool. Well, I can't go to yesterday and borrow yesterday's soldiers. So in that finale and getting all of these multiple time streams kind of looping back in, and we've got old Yvonne plus young Yvonne plus somewhere in the middle Yvonne. Teenage Strahovski plus Chris Pratt, who is old, plus alternate Chris Pratt plus Chris Pratt from the Robot universe. Like there's all of these different timelines and streamlines just kind of.
Yeah, they go in like more directions than we expected. Like they kept all that under wraps.
Yeah, once you run out of yesterday's soldiers, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to go to a sideways timeline, and you're going to find a different Chris Pratt, and whose jokes are going to be even worse. I thought that was really beautifully done. I thought it was very poignant and just had a lot of commentary in there. I thought that was really great. I loved it.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if maybe there's also a commentary of like the older people of the previous generation kind of feel like they lose some of their own innocence, like seeing their own children grow older and fight these wars and seeing what they lose, and it's like this very existential thing I wasn't expecting to feel. And like even like several months later, it's like thinking back to it, it's like, wow, that movie actually had like some smart stuff in it, even though it looked like it was just gonna be like your run-of-the-mill action movie,
Yeah, but I would like to know whether there is a timeline where all of that movie is being told, but from the future perspective. In which case, it's not the future coming back to get our soldiers; it's the present going back in time to get their soldiers. Then we just put the two movies and we watch them like back to back, like a recut of Memento.
Yeah, that would be something. I just hope there's a timeline where in Parks and Rec, Chris Pratt actually plays a character named Chris rather than have the character Chris played by someone else like Rob Lowe, because that's kind of confusing to me. It's like, why couldn't Chris Pratt play Chris and why couldn't Rob Lowe play Andy? Like just have the names,
Yeah, we have so many Chris's running around Hollywood right now that it just really becomes a problem.
Yeah, it becomes Chris-is on Infinite Earths, so to speak.
Yeah, we've got Chris, we've got Chris Pratt, we've got Chris Pine, we've got Chris Hemsworth,
Chris Evans,
Chris
Rock.
We have Christoph Waltz. I don't know if he counts as one of the Chris's, but you know what? I'm gonna count him.
We also have Chris Tucker. Like, yeah, there are lots of Chris's.
There's so many Chris's. But yeah, I do want to see. Yeah, I want to see. The Chris's Infinity War. Just all of the Chris's.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be something. Well, unless you have anything else you'd like to bring up, I guess we could go into final thoughts and score out of 10.
I think altogether, I think we're looking at good CGI. I mean, we're looking at a good but pretty standard action plot. But you know, it's time travel, so I'm going to give it that. We've got some adequate performances. Maybe these people aren't at the top of their game, but we're getting some interesting comedians in there playing roles where they're not allowed to tell jokes in the future. That's always great. So overall, I think I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 timelines.
Okay, that's fair. I do think some of the action movie tropes, bog it down a little bit in places for me. But when it shines, with the human moments, whenever, Chris Pratt and Yvonne are talking to each other, or when Chris Pratt and J.K. Simmons are talking to each other, or even when all these other side characters we didn't talk much about, they each have their different moments to an extent, and it's yeah, this is humanity. Past, present, future, you still have that human element, and there's something inspiring about that. I think I'd give the Tomorrow War 7.75 out of 10 wrestling rings.
Okay. That's fair. I like that. And getting down into those little divisors, all the little bits make a difference. You got J.K. Simmons, you get an extra 0.75. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I guess that'll do it. Thanks for joining me on this episode, Austin. Where can people find your stuff?
Well, hey, I'm glad to join. I perform regularly with an improv group called the Instant Improv. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Instant Improv. We regularly perform at a theater in Costa Mesa with the Improv Collective. You can also check out the amazing comedy theater in Huntington Beach.
Nice. Yeah, I'll link the social media stuff in the show notes. And as for my plugs, people can find me at Steven Shinder on Instagram and Twitter, Steven Shinder Storytelling on Facebook. That Facebook page is basically where I'll post whatever I'm involved with. So,
and links to your book.
Yeah. Yeah. People can also go to stevenshinder.com. There's info on the first book on there. And whenever the second book is ready, there'll be info on that.
To it. I'm going to come find your book.
Yeah. You're going to hunt it down as if yeah. And if you want to email this podcast, you can email delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the different movies that have been covered, or what you think of time travel in general, and we might read your thoughts on the show within reason, obviously. And so, yeah, thanks again for joining me. And the next episode will be about Snake Eyes.
Yeah, great. So I'm looking forward to see your thoughts.
Right. And yeah, I think that'll do it. So without further delay, have a good day.
Thank you so much, Stephen. You have a good night.